welcome back to my Skillshop project series. So in task 24 I have already designed my watchlist page. So in this task 25 I will be programming the watchlist page including the product adding and viewing process. So the watchlist feature is the heart button that lets buyers to save skills they are interested in and come back to them later. Like, think of it as a favorites list or a save for later, which is very common on e-learning platforms. Okay, so first off, in my ER diagram I have first created a watchlist table. So in here the ID is the primary key, which is auto implemented, and every watchlist entry gets a unique identifier. And then next I have the user ID, which means it's a foreign key linking to the user table. So this tells us that whose watchlist this entry belongs to. Then later on I have the product ID, which is also a foreign key linking to the product table. This tells us which product was saved. And lastly, I have created add timestamp. So this means it automatically records when the item was added. Now after creating this table, we will synchronize the database and save it. Okay, now first off, we will move on to the watchlist.php file. So in here, right at the top, three things happen. So the first one is the session start, which only fires if no session is active yet. Then later on we will check is set session first to avoid the classic headers already sent error when a session was started earlier in the request. Then secondly, we pull the database connection and the authcheck.php file, which handles the remember me token logic from the earlier task. Thirdly, we have the access control. So this page is strictly for buyers. We grab the logged in, the active account type and the user ID from the session. If the user isn't logged in and isn't a buyer or somehow has a 0 user ID, then we will redirect them to the index.php file and exit them immediately. No watchlist is for guests, sellers or anyone who shouldn't be here. Okay, now we will move on to the SQL query that fetches all the data we need in one go. So let me walk through this carefully. So first we will start from the watch list, not the product. This is intentional because we want to start from this specific user's saved item and join outward to get product details. If we started from the product, we'd be filtering after the fact. Starting from watchlist means every row is already scoped to this user. Then the join product has an extra condition baked in and product status. So this is elegant. If a user deactivates or deletes a product, it silently disappears from the watchlist even though the watchlist row still exists in the database. No orphan cards, no error. Then in the left join means that if the seller account doesn't exist for some reason, we will still get the product row just with null for seller name, which we will handle in the HTML with a fallback. Next we have from the left join the feedback, which fetches the ratings. Here we use class F rating 0. So this means if the product has no feedback at all, the average of nulls would return null. The class converts nulls to 0, so average returns 0 instead of null, which is cleaner to handle in the display logic. Then later on we have where from the watchlist user ID and then group by the product ID, the watchlist ID. So here we will group by both since our starting table is watchlist. Each row has its own watchlist ID. Grouping by both ensures the aggregation is correct and avoids any duplicate rows. Then we have the order by, watchlist created at descending order. So this means the most recently saved items appears first. Here the I is the prepared statement, type string, one integer, which is the user ID, matching the question mark placeholder in the where clause. Then later on we loop these results into an array. So this null save operator means that if the query returns null due to a database error, this won't crash. We just get an empty array. Then after this we will require the header.php file. Then after the require header.php file, the page header displays a rose colored badge with a filled heart icon. Then we have the my watchlist title and a dynamic item count. So in here the ID item count is important as the user removes the items. The ternary handles singular versus plural correctly. If there are more skills, then it will show with the letter S. If there is only one, then it will show as a singular word, skill. Below that we also have a link for the button browse more to the search products.php file so that users can go discover more skills to save. Then later on we have the product grid, which has the for each loop and the article card. So in here this means that if the $items has entries, we render a responsive CSS grid which has the column 1 on mobile, 2 for tablet and 3 on desktop. So in here each card is an article element with a key attribute. So in here we have the data product ID. So this is how the JavaScript will find and remove this specific card when the user clicks the heart. Every card has its own unique product ID stored here. So later on inside each card, a full card has an anchor tag wrapping the image and the content linking to the product view.php file. Then we have the product image with an emoji if there is a fallback. Then a level badge on the top left. Then after that we have the seller's name, the product title and the star rating, and lastly the price. And then at the right top of the card we have the heart button which has the class WL heart. So this is what JavaScript queries are for. The SPG is always the fill current color, here solid filled, because on the watchlist page every card is already saved. There is no empty heart state on this page. The button sits above the card link thanks to the set10. Then later on, if the user has nothing saved, we will show a centered empty state with a large heart emoji, a heading and a description and a browse skills button which is nice and friendly, which guides the users to the right action. So in here first we have the emoji, then your watchlist is empty as a heading, then the description as a paragraph, we have the save skills you're interested in with the heart icon and find them here. After that we will move on to the script. So here we will only inject the script if there are items to interact with. We initialize items count with the PHP generated count, so JavaScript knows how many items we have started with. After that, we use the event declaration here. One listener on the grid catches links on any heart button inside it. So here we use the closest WL heart, which walks up to the DOM tree from the clicked element to find the button, even if the user clicked the SVG icon inside the button. Then we will send the product ID to the watchlist process.php file via a post fetch request and await the adjacent response. Then, if the server confirms the removal, we find the card by its data product ID, remove it from the DOM, decrement our counter and update the count text on the screen, all without a page reload. That's a smooth user experience. And if the count hits 0, we inject the empty state HTML dynamically so the page gracefully transitions to showing your watch list is empty. So we will see the full removal flow in the next video. Now let's move on to the header.php file. So in here, in the right section of the navigation bar inside the logged in block, there's a condition checking if a user is buyer. So it means in here, so that means the watchlist heart icon only appears in the header navigation if the logged in user is a buyer. Sellers don't see this. On hover, it turns rose red, matching the watchlist color theme. It links directly to the watchlist.php file. Further down in the profile drop-down menu, again inside the buyer check, we have the same link to the watchlist.php file. So that means there are two places buyers can access the watchlist from the header, the heart icon in the nav bar and the my watchlist link in the profile drop-down, both linked to the watchlist.php file. Now let's look at the search page. So this is the search products.php file. Here we are only focusing on the watchlist related code. So first we will fetch the user's watchlist IDs in here. After the products are fetched, there's this block in here which runs only if the user is a logged in buyer. So here we will fetch all the product IDs that are in their watchlist and store them in an associative array called watchlist IDs, where the key is the product ID and the value is true. So this makes the lookup extremely fast. So we can check this in a short amount of time instead of running a query per product. Now later, inside the product card image section, we have this watchlist button. So this heart button only renders for logged in buyers using the $in WL. So here we will determine the initial state. If the product is already in the watchlist, the heart is filled in rose colored. If not, it's an outline in gray. The data in attribute stores the current state for JavaScript to read. The JavaScript handler at the bottom of the file. So here we will also use the same JavaScript that we used in the watchlist.php file. So in here, again we use an event delegation on the document level. When a hard button is clicked, we post it to the watchlist process.php file. Then we will get back whether it was added or removed and update the button's visual state accordingly so that we can fill or unfill the SVG toggle, the color classes, and then update the title attribute with no page reload within instant feedback. So that's what we have used in here in the data product ID and the data in. Now we will switch to the advanced search page, which uses the exact same watchlist button as the regular search page. So let me just point out the relevant spots quickly so I can show the prefetch of the watchlist IDs in here. It is the same as we have used in the search products.php file. So in here we will use the same hard button logic in the product card, checking the dollar in WL is set $watchlist IDs product ID and rendering a field or outline heart accordingly, and the exact same JavaScript handler at the bottom of the advanced search products.php file inside the buyer check. So here the only meaningful difference between the two search pages is the layout. The advanced search has the filters and the sorting, but the watchlist code is identical. The consistency is intentional. It means if you need to update the watchlist logic in one place, you know to update in the other two. Now let's move on to the product view.php file. So in here the product view page is where a buyer is looking at a single product in detail. The watchlist integration here is slightly different because there's only one product and the hard button is inside the CTA card on the sidebar. So at the top of the PHP section, here we have the watchlist query. So since we are on a single product page, we don't need the full $watchlist IDs array. We just run one simple query which does a raw access in the watchlist where the both product ID matches this product and the user ID matches the current buyer. If yes, the $in watchlist will be true. Now we will move on to the watchlist button in the sidebar. So inside the CTA card, in the section that shows the logged in buyers who haven't purchased the product yet, it will show the watchlist button. So this button sits next to the add to cart button. Its initial state is determined by the $in watch list. If it's already in the watch list, it shows a filled heart and the text in watch list. If not, it shows an outline heart and shows watch list. Now let's move on to the JavaScript. So in here we have the function for the watchlist button. So in here this function is wrapped in an JavaScript function that runs as soon as it is identified. So it is an immediately invoked function expression to keep the scopes clean. So it adds a click listener directly to the single WL button, the watchlist button. On success, it updates the heart emoji character and the text content of the button dynamically. So in here it shows a heart that is filled if the watchlist button is clicked. It's saved to the watchlist. If not, it will show an emptied heart. Now let's move on to the watchlist process.php file. This is the brain of the whole operation, the backend process file that every heart button across the site communicates with. Let's go through it. So first we will ensure that the session is active, and then we will load the database connection and set the response content type to JSON. Every response from this file will be a JSON object. Next we will get the authentication check. So before doing anything, we will verify the request is coming from a logged in buyer. If not, we will return a JSON error with the message unauthorized and then exit immediately. So this is the server-side security gate. Even if someone bypasses the user interface, they can't manipulate the watchlist without a valid buyer session. After that, we will move on to the input validation. So in here we will extract and sanitize both the user ID from the session and the product ID from the post data. So both are cast to integers. If either is 0 or negative, we return an error. So this prevents any garbage data from reaching the database. Next, we will move on to the toggle logic. So in here we will check if a row already exists in the watch list for user product combination. So this is a toggle pattern. So if the product is already in watch list, we will delete it and return the action removed if it's not there. After that, we will insert and return the action added. The response always includes success, a boolean indicating whether the database operation succeeded, and the action, the string telling the front end what happened so it can update the user interface correctly. So this single file handles both adding and removing, which is why every heart button across the entire site points to the same endpoint. The logic is centralized here. Also note that we are not covering the removal flow from the watchlist page in detail today. That's coming in the next video, where we will look at how the front end responds specifically to the removed action on the watchlist page itself. Okay, now you can see that I have already logged in as a buyer in here. So as you can see, as a buyer, I can see in my header the watchlist heart icon in the header, and then also in the profile drop down you can see that there is a link to the watchlist page in here as my watchlist, and you can see in this watchlist page I have already added 3 skills so that I can review them and purchase them later. And then if I want to browse more, I can click on this browse more button, and it takes me to the search page where I can search for more products or search for more skills that I can add to the watchlist page. And then if I want to view a product individually from the product view page, in here also you can see in the CTA card I have the watchlist button below the enroll now button. In here also, if I click on this, it will be added to my watchlist. And then if I click on the advanced search button, so if I go to the advanced search page, it also shows me the products that have been already saved in the watchlist page. And in here too you can add more skills to the watchlist page. Now if I go to the watchlist page, it shows me how much products that I have saved here with plural S, and if there is only one skill saved here, it updates and removes the S and says one skill saved for later. And then if there is no skill saved for later, it shows me this watchlist empty state where it shows with the heart icon and the header, your watchlist is empty, save skills you're interested in with the heart icon and find them here. So that means it guides the user to the place where you can browse skills and save them here in the watchlist page. So if I click on this browse skills, it takes me to the search products page where I can add skills to the watchlist page. And that's how we programmed a fully functional dynamic watchlist page using PHP, MySQL, Tailwind CSS, and JavaScript. So this implementation includes buyer-only access control, a responsive product grid with hover animations, dynamic hard toggle buttons across search and product pages, real-time DOM updates when adding, a graceful empty state user interface when the watchlist has no items. In the next task, task 26, we will continue from here and program the product removal flow directly from the watchlist page, including how the card animates out of the grid and how the page transitions smoothly into the empty state. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.